Moving on to tip number 7. Tip number 7 is structure. I've been involved or experienced Toolbox talks where nobody really knows what's happening in terms of an order. It just gets lost. There can be discussion, but that fits in with, then there's a bit of Q&A, then we start talking, and really something that people need is structure. Introduction, the main body, and a conclusion. This sets out to people when they're watching to have an expectation of where they are in the process of a Toolbox talk or briefing. So there's a very, very popular three, I suppose, phrase saying is tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So let's just go back a little bit there. Okay, so the first thing is to do an introduction is actually tell them what you're going to tell them. Okay, so it just sets a scene. It's a very big picture. So for example, it may be something to do with one of our favorites, great crested newts. So the introduction would be, this Toolbox talk is about great crested newts. You might say something about how long the Toolbox talk is going to be about, and then you also set the scene of actually what's going to happen in the Toolbox talk. So you may want to discuss a little bit. You may, as the previous tip said, get an expert involved. You may have an opportunity for Q&A at the end, and then a conclusion. So you're setting the scene of the structure of what the actual Toolbox talk is going to be like. Then the second one is tell them. So that is about the main body. So after the introduction, you go into the actual delivery of the Toolbox talk, and then finally tell them what you told them. So in conclusion, do a brief overview of what has been discussed, and maybe if there is Q&A, what are some of the things that have come out of that. This structure is not to be confused with something like school in terms of when we're talking about engaging Toolbox talks, is to actually get two-way conversation. There is a time and a place for the one-way communication, but don't confuse it that is what you're going to be there. This is one of the things that you will shut people off straight away, because in their heads they're back to school, where if you were at a school like mine, is that it was just one way. It was the teacher knew everything and the students listened or wrote down, and it was that kind of conversation or kind of briefing that people were giving. So this is more about having an opportunity. So in that structure is having some delivery. So there might be some new information that you do have to give the people that are in the audience, but equally always have the opportunity, the structure in place for there to be a bit of two-way conversation, so that they're more engaged and more buy-in on the subject. So that's tip number 7, structure. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you've told them.